Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose.
Good evening. Welcome, Uniters. Welcome once more. Thank you for joining us on yet another UIC Liberty TV. My name is Winston Wright. I'm your chairman. I'm seeing an error on my page here. Niger, are you seeing that? All right, so I'm having an error. Let's double check to see if I'm on. Anybody out there watching? Just drop us a comment to let us know if you're seeing and hearing loud and clear. Seeing clearly, hearing loudly. So that way we don't miss a beat. All right, Madam Producer is saying we're loud and clear. All right. So I know a lot of people are waiting, looking on, and are eager to hear. I see 11 persons on already. Thank you for spending your evening with us. We appreciate your time, and we'll do all we can to help open up the perspective for you. So tonight, we're looking at the struggles. You're looking at what it takes a country of African descent to decolonize. We're looking at the struggles to create a truly free society, a truly open economy for everyone. At least how difficult it is for those who have tried. And the UIC has a system outlined for Jamaica that promises great things. And we should use these examples that we are seeing to make sure that we're able to take care of ourselves, then regionally look after our brothers, and then internationally create that strong diaspora link in one of the greatest market, untapped market there is, which is Africa. So there was a scholar, a black economic scholar, that says that in the non-black economy, money circulates 5 or 6 times. Meaning, when money is introduced into that economy, it passes up to 6 hands of persons in that economy. So let's say it's the white economy, right? A white country. It would go to one white person, a second, up to 6 persons. In the black economy, that happens 2 or 3 times, but it needs to be happening at the minimum 5 times or up to 6 as it is in the other economic setup. What that means is this: if I spend my money with you, and we're using the Jamaican economy as an example, and with you as, say, a mason, and you, the mason, spends some of that money or all of it with me, well, with the tailor, and the tailor spends it with the grocer, and the grocer spends it with the farmer. That circulation draws capital into our black economy. But if, on the other hand, if I spend the money with any other ethnicity, and that ethnicity, especially in the Jamaican reality where monies, capital don't stay in the island, rather it goes in the bank and from the bank to an offshore account, because majority of the things we own or the things on island are owned by us, for example, hotels. So when we spend our money and go to those hotels, immediately in one cycle, that money goes out of the island. So there is no residual spending effect from using our monies in that way, and therefore we don't benefit significantly. So the thinking is that if we're able to create that 6 degrees of circulation in our economy, then we would have a greater spending power, a greater drawing power, and would attract more development. So remember that banter. It will come back later on. All right. And Madam Producer, I'm not seeing any chat. If you can help me with that, forgive my novice state. So, from the Caribbean to Africa, we continue to struggle. We struggle on. And economics is one of the biggest reasons. So let's start in the Caribbean. And we'll use Cuba as this first example. Not Haiti, but Cuba this time. In 1958, Cuba faced its first set of embargo. Right? And Cuba has been under varying degrees of embargo from then until now. And Cuba is struggling economically, but surviving. Now, Cuba, our Caribbean partner, our Caribbean brother, and a country with a sizable Afro-ethnic population. The Cuban population is mixed, of course, but they're Caribbean people nonetheless. Right? Their Spanish heritage is still something to be proud of, that they are proud of, but they also still recognize and celebrate their African roots. So Cuba has been struggling because they have been kept out of the mainstream economy. Their sugar, their agricultural produce, all of that is excluded from the local market. And Cuba heavily relies on remittances, just like Jamaica. But they have one thing that Jamaicans seem to have forgotten, and they're very resilient. They're very reliant on their innovation. They're able to keep, and people who study in Cuba and visit Cuba will tell they're able to keep any machine running because of how innovative and how creative they are. So that's something to look at. But the fact is that they have been excluded from the mainstream economy since 1958, 1960. And that is known to have set back their economy. It stopped them from developing because they're not bringing in any effects, any foreign exchange. And of course, they're not earning. So their GDP, as gross domestic product, how much they produce, the value of that produce is lower than average because of that fact. Now, I won't talk about why we should protest the embargo and other stuff like that. It's just to illustrate how not having monies in your economy keep your economy down, that liquidity as they call it. Let's now move to our number 2 example, which is Haiti. Now, Haiti's situation is slightly different, but potent and very pointed nonetheless. Haiti's economic slight now comes from extortion. You know, when they talk about extortion in Spanish Town and other places in Jamaica where you have to pay somebody who has not done any work for you just so you can do business. So they're not earning anything or contributing to your business, but they're taking away from your business, sometimes more than you can afford to give. That was what happened to Haiti. And in a previous episode, Better by Haiti, we talked about the colonial debt that was levied on Haiti and the fact that it was illegal. It was twice the amount of the actual loss when modern economists have looked at it, twice the amount of the loss that the plantocracy suffered. But at the same time, is it a loss to say that you have lost your slave holdings and what has come of it because your slaves have revolted? Well, you have to actually pay billions of dollars for your freedom. Haiti had to pay what is $21 billion in today's money to get their freedom. all the way back in the early 19th century. And they had to do that. A country that had no economic means, that just started out as a former slave colony, that just took hold of their freedom. And before they could earn a dollar, before they could participate in the mainstream economy to have their freedom recognized, they had to pay what equates to $21 billion. Now, just like Cuba, having all of that money go out of your economy has to be detrimental to your development, has to create serious problems in your healthcare system, your education system, your infrastructure development, etc. Look at Jamaica. The billions that have been stolen from us by politicians, we are seeing it in those very lovely swimming hole, right? Not pothole, but swimming hole. Like when you're a kid, and then you'll see these little ponds you could dive in. That's what we have on our streets now. And it's thanks to the billions that have been lost in our economy. So let us be aware of that. But to continue with the Haitian parallel, when you look at all that money that left, Haiti had to take a massive loan that they recently paid off in 1994 or something like that. They paid it off. But in the 1990s, they paid off that debt. So that massive amount of money that they borrowed, including interest, they had to pay back on it. So in that episode, we talked about how to look at it and see how such a debt could be debilitating. You're able to look and see how Haiti would be struggling to pay that debt. So now let's look at Haiti as your home. And imagine you just got your house. And to keep the house, you have to go out and borrow a massive debt, say, like say a $5 million debt. Right? And struggle to pay it back at a massive interest rate. You're paying it for years and you can't pay it off. It means that sometimes you won't be able to buy food. Sometimes you won't be able to buy medicine. Sometimes you won't be able to plant crops. Sometimes you won't be able to fix the house. Right? The house will start looking shabby. That's what happened to Haiti. Now, that debt by France, in recent times, it was demanded that money, since it was illegal, be repaid. That reparations be paid to Haiti. Now, out of all the countries asking about reparations, nobody has mentioned the Haitian situation. But it was mentioned by a very prominent economist, French economist, by the way, and he said that if France were to pay back that debt to Haiti, they would be bankrupt. So do we wonder why they don't pay it back, even though that money was illegally extorted from our Haitian brothers? Now, think about it. And while you think about it, let's move. Now, let's go further afield. Let's go visit one of our favorite places. Right? Let's go visit our brothers on the continent. We now need to see the parallel. So remember Haiti, they were excluded from the mainstream economy until they paid their extortion debt, and the debt was so structured that Haiti wasn't able to survive. All right? But here we are. This place that you're seeing on your screen, this is West Africa. It's not the whole of the continent, just the western part of the continent. And you'll recognize some names there from the news. You'll recognize Nigeria at the bottom, here in what looks like brown. Forgive me, I'm a man, so I'm not color savvy. If you can see my little white cursor, it looks like brown. You'll also see Niger. You'll also see Mali, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, etc., Senegal. Now, all these countries in West Africa, by the way, including the ones I have mentioned, they were collectively, during the colonial era, or a time that they called the scramble for Africa. Yes, everybody and their mama did I try get peace of Africa. So they called that the scramble for Africa. Right? Where all the white colonialist countries would come in and capture pieces of Africa and participated in the slave trade, etc., and the exploitation of the natural resources there, from lumber to minerals to people. So all that era collectively was referred to collectively as French Africa. Yeah, I know, right? France, all the way up there in the north, in Europe, has a place or places in Africa that they call French Africa. I mean, that is strange. I've never heard of a Rome Africa or Africa Rome where we were somebody else's place, but let's go with that. So, collectively referred to as French Africa. All right, Nigeria, by the way, was a British colony, so that doesn't count. But they were surrounded by French colonies. Now, over the years, you'd have heard from the former African Union leader, I think it's Ambassador Sirleaf is her name, and she was drummed out of the African Union as well as the UN for speaking out in 2019 about the conditions under which France maintains control of these countries, referred to as in the past as French Africa. Right? Cool. One of the things she talked about was the fact that these countries were required to put half of their national reserves. So, Jamaica, you always hear the politicians talk about our net international reserves, right? Which is it just simply being the amount of money we have in our central bank. So these African countries, the monies that they have in their central bank to protect their economy, half of it needs to go to the French central bank. Now, that money in the French central bank, guess what happens to it? It becomes loans and grants in their development banks, which these same French country, that are African countries that are French colonies or were French colonies, now have to go and borrow to do international development. And guess what's similar? It's similar to what happens in the banks, where you take your hard-earned money, put it in the bank, and then you go and borrow a very hefty mortgage to build a house and pay back interest on your money. Right? Sounds similar, right? So it's the same thing. The same thing that happens on the international scale. Right? And the money doctor, I'm sure one day he'll oblige us by going into international finance for us. That's what dear President Mr. Joseph L. Patterson. But to continue, so they would need to borrow these money from France to do development projects. But most importantly, they have to use French companies. So a lot of French infrastructure company, a lot of French consultancies benefit from this relationship. Okay? And does that sound familiar again? Where Jamaica borrows money from, say, China, and then companies like China Harbor Engineering Company comes and do the work and get back the money. So no money actually come to us. Thank God, they would have steal some anyway. Right? But the money goes from China to China Harbor, but we are left with a massive debt to repay. Right? Same thing happened to our African brothers. You follow? Well, I'm not seeing any comments from anyone to let me know if they're following the logics, following the argument. I'm trying to draw a line here for you from the Caribbean into Africa. Okay? So don't be shy. Share your thoughts. And Madam Producer, if you're here with us, and I've seen those comments coming up on the screen, to see if you can help me with that. So to continue. So they borrow these monies back from these French companies who exploit these people. Right? And of course, this money is not circulating in their economy. It doesn't even come in fully. It just comes in on paper. And it goes out to another French company. And voila, they're left with nothing. So these companies are rich. These are our arms company. These are companies that do infrastructure work, etc. And these countries now are, oh, sorry, people. Let's get back to this. There you go. So these countries are left holding the bag. Now, what has been happening is that these countries are waking up. They're realizing that this is a poor situation to be in. No pun intended. Okay? And they've been waking up for a while now, but slowly. But let's continue to show you how the controls work. These countries are also required to use a currency referred to as the CFA franc, which the franc, F-R-A-N-C, is the French monetary name. So they get to use the CFA franc, right? Which the C, as my research has showed me, stands for colonial, right? So colonial franc Afrique, trying to use my French accent here. So they had to use that money. So what does that mean? It means that France prints their money, and therefore France can determine what is called their liquidity. And let me show you how that works now. One of these countries, right? And I'm trying to make sure that I don't tell a lie on these guys. Trying to make sure I get the exact company correct. Algeria, countries are correct. Algeria decided that they want independence, and they got independence. Right? Fought for it, got it. And was it Algeria? No, it's not Algeria. My apologies. It's not Algeria. Right? It's Sierra Leone. Yes, Sierra Leone. So they got their independence. Now these revolutionary leaders, these persons that came up during the Black Power movement era of the 70s, got control of the country through a popular uprising, and they decided they were immediately put under embargo. But they decided to push ahead and suffer. They had a saying that it's better to die in poverty than to live in colonial slavery. So they decided that they're going to try their hand. But when France realized that they were standing their grounds, France hatched a plan to undermine their economy in the most profound way. They found out that they were planning to print their own currency. So they developed a plan to counterfeit that money and then flood the market with it, which means the money would not have any value. The economy would crash. Luckily, they were found out. Now, having said that, France seemed very determined to hold on to its holdings, as they would call it, in West Africa. And we'd wonder why. In those areas, you find a lot of gold, a lot of diamonds, right? Great timber is in the river regions in those areas. The Cameroons, the Nigeria, there's oil there, right? Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and so on. Also, one of the best things in that region, along with the oil, is uranium. Now, France generates 95% of its electricity based on reports from nuclear power plants, which means it needs uranium to enrich, to generate its power. But guess what? While France is doing that, right, based on the puppet governments it has installed by means of its economic controls over these countries, 14 countries in total, right? It would install these puppet governments that would give them these sweetheart deals. So when the uranium is mined, the earnings from it, 95% of it goes to France and 5% goes to the country. France is well lit, while up to 95% of the country does not have electricity. France has well paved road. You always see in movies, especially the last blockbuster movie, not plugging these movies, but if you watch a particular blockbuster movie with Keanu Reeves, you would see a massive fight scene in an era of France called the Arc de Triomphe, which is a World War II monument. Lovely cobblestone road with paved extensions and parks around it, right? None of that exists at that time in what is called French Africa. And to this day, nothing similar to that exists in most of these countries. They are totally under the economic thumb of France. Totally. So our black brothers, even though they're told they have independence, just like we're lied to and told that we have independence, again, another parallel, right? They are under the thumb of France. Their money is printed in France. Their money was given to them by France. Their educational system, their language, their healthcare, everything was given to them by France. I'll tell you a story. The same country that got its independence and France tried to undermine them by sinking their money. When they got independence, the French decided to leave when they fought and won their independence. Freedom is not given, like our president said. It has to be earned. So if somebody gives you freedom, then it's not freedom. More than likely, you're still in their bag and you don't know. So the independence we got, we're still in their bag and don't know. And that is what UIC is trying to tell us, that we need to break free. So when that country said, I'm not going to be in your bag anymore, this thing has to end. The French that lived in that area, they decided that they're going to leave. And they said, listen, all the benefits of colonialism, we will be taking that from you. We are taking it. So they went ahead, they burned all the school they built, they burned the hospitals, the clinics, they destroyed farms, farm animals, farm equipment, everything that they classified as benefits of colonialism to destroy the country. Every single thing. So when you realize that you're in the bag, it's too late. But these guys realized early and said they wanted out, and they still try to sink them, still try to destroy their economy, their livelihoods, and their lives. So we need to recognize what is happening and ensure that we take steps to liberate ourselves. So let's look at it now. In a system that is totally controlled by your colonizer, you will never have any freedom. You will need to create a system for yourself. Luckily for Jamaica, that system that will break us free is a non-partisan constitutional republic. Now, if you look at what is happening with the neo-colonialist parties that we have here in Jamaica, who continues to shackle us at the hips and at the umbilicals to the colonial masters, instead of ripping up the constitution of the slave master, of the colonizer, they want to reform it. They want to make it better. But how can it be made better when it was an instrument of our subjugation and continues to be? 80 years and we have not progressed. 80 years and we are as impoverished as Haiti is. We struggle financially like Cuba does. We struggle educationally like Africa and the other countries do. Then there is absolutely no way that this will be any better for us. We have to realize that. And that is why this system is super important. We have to make sure that we embrace the system. Right? We can't reform a bad system. It will still be a bad system. We need to get rid of that bad system and implement a system of governance that truly represent the ideals that we want. And the ideals that we want isn't servitude, is not high debt, is not economic control by somebody else, but economic control by us. Now, these countries woke up and revolt. They revolted. The last 3 countries that revolted in this area, right? We had Mali first, Burkina Faso second, and Niger third. Niger just took action against their government less than 3 weeks ago. And right now, France already put out a speech to say they will not recognize the new military government. They want the reinstatement of the old president, and they are willing to intervene militarily, which is fancy speak for we will invade you if you don't put back the previous leader in power, which of course is the puppet government that they have there that gives them the country's resources while the people stay dirt poor and struggling. Even worse than that, they have done this to other countries before, where they intervene militarily to restore a puppet government that is friendly to them. Now, Mali did a few months ago, did overthrow their government, and be clear, the UIC is not advocating overthrow of any government. We appreciate the benefits of a democratic transition of an awoken population that stands up and use their God-given right to choose to put a system in place that protects their right to life, liberty, and property, to create a system that protects everyone equally, which is why we are here educating Jamaicans, letting them know what the alternatives are before we get to that tipping point, that boiling point. So Mali extricated themselves. Then comes Niger as the final one to extricate themselves, and this has these colonial powers concerned. And they're ready to use their African brothers now to continue their subjugation, because here comes a group of Africans in the same West African region. Right? They call themselves ECOWAS. And what does that mean? Economic Cooperation of West Africa, West African states. Right? And Nigeria being the biggest economy in West Africa, they are the persons that the rest of the bloc looks to as the big economy to drive these initiatives. They have threatened to invade and spill the blood of their fellow Africans because they want to restore a puppet government that is loyal to France. And everybody wants to understand why. A lot of West African countries are upset about it, so upset that Algeria, Mali, and Burkina Faso have said that if this happens, they will be defending Niger. So now, at a glance, the entire West Africa is going to be at war if this happens. So, persons both in Nigeria and groups have been pressuring the government, saying we can't fight our African brothers on behalf of the colonizers. That's how woke and open-minded our African brothers are. They have asked their government to stand down, and that has been stifling the government's plan to partner with France, where France has even shipped in heavy armaments to their armies to do this invasion. But they're being told by their population, no, we will not have it. You will not fight our African brothers. And that is what we want to hear. And that's why when we say Jamaicans should not be putting military or police boots on the ground in Haiti, but rather supporting their transition, including demanding their economic rights, because France has billions of dollars for them that could do great good for their economy, could uplift the people of France, of Haiti, sorry, if the French would pay their debt to Haiti. But those are the things that we should do. The last person that demanded the repayment of this debt in writing is no longer with us. So you can see how very anxious the colonial powers are to, one, silence dissent, persons who would start a narrative and create a movement that would pressure them to act honorably, and also how desperate they are to hold on to the ill-gotten resources of Africa. Right now, cobalt is the next hot mineral to be extracted from Africa. And believe it or not, the Russians who are there helping our African brothers, and only there out of the goodness of their heart. They may have goodwill towards us, but that's not the only motivator, because in the future that is being designed for us by the powers that be, cobalt plays a big part in those smart devices that will control us. And the Chinese are not there building cheap infrastructure out of the goodness of their heart. Even though it's better than what is to be had, it is still not on our terms, and therefore not the best thing for our African brothers. So the long and short of this diatribe is this: from the Caribbean, from Jamaica to Haiti, to Cuba, to West Africa, to South Africa, North Africa, we're all suffering under the colonial yoke because we have not stepped up to liberate ourselves completely from this colonial bondage. We allowed ourselves to be told that we have freedom. Very few countries on the world map has fought and gotten their freedom. Very few countries on the world map knows what true freedom is. But Jamaica has the opportunity to taste true freedom. And as I said, it's not given, it's taken. And we as a people need to. Right now, the leader of Burkina Faso on your screen right here, and let me get my pronunciation right, Ibrahim Traoré, and my French is not the best. He's making waves on the international scene because he's not afraid to say that his country was exploited and Africa is being exploited, and he's here to end that exploitation. This young man, only 35, is standing bravely and facing down the colonial masters, just like Joseph L. Patterson. And his people are listening to him. When he called them to rally to show the French that they're serious about evicting them from Burkina Faso, his people did. When he asked them to stand up and face down the colonial masters as they bear down on their brothers in Niger, they did. He went further. He put his money where his mouth is, and he said, if you attack Niger, you attack Burkina Faso, and we will defend Niger. That is black people sticking together. That is us getting it together. But here in the Caribbean, we still don't see ourselves as one community. Here in Jamaica, we still don't see ourselves as one country. Here, we don't see ourselves as one economy. We believe that if we are excluded or we escape the trap, we are fine. But understand this, man was not made to live alone. You will never prosper alone. You have to trade with somebody. And I'm saying to Jamaicans, don't allow ourselves to continue to fall in the traps that we have seen set and sprung around us from the Caribbean into Africa. We now know better. We now need to raise our voice. We now need to practice what we have learned and what we have now started to preach. By the way, have you subscribed as yet? Have you hit the like button as yet? The last time we checked, and the producer can correct me, it showed that 94% of the people who watch these videos, and a lot of people watch these videos, have not subscribed as yet. Now, for the UIC message to get out there, you have to subscribe. You have to click the notification icon, and you have to like. That's how the colonialist system work. And to beat them, we have to take over their system. So we need to do like the Dutch did, like the people in Holland did, and annex their system, take it over, and then use it for our purpose. So go ahead, subscribe, like, and when you share directly from YouTube. Don't copy the link. Yes, we'll get the like, but we won't get the share, and the algorithm calculate everything as one. Okay, help us spread the word. So Ibrahim is standing up for West Africa. Joseph L. Patterson is standing up for Jamaica. What are you standing for? You see what's happening. You see the subsistent living that they constantly keep us on. You hear and you see the trickery because we give you the research. While they're boasting that major crimes are down, the crimes we still have are 10 times as horrific. While they're boasting that we have more enrollment in schools, we're graduating more dunces. While they boast that they're building state-of-the-art STEM academies, we have more teachers leaving. And even when they say less teachers have left than the time before, we still have less teachers graduating because now nobody wants to get into the field. But you realize that all of this started when the politician became the most important person in the community and not the teacher or the nurse or the doctor. You realize that? Let's get back to the days where our civil servants were at the top of the heap. They were respected. They were treated fairly. They had pride in their profession, and they were about the country and not their pockets because they weren't struggling to survive. Can we ask a police officer to be honest when his salary is deliberately withheld, especially his overtime is withheld, and he has a family to take care of? I'm not saying that's an excuse to be dishonest, but I'm saying that is their reason for being dishonest. And we need to demand better. When the UIC called for mass protest against the enrichment, right, the legal enrichment of our politicians with their 120 to 200% salary increases, people quarrel in droves on social media. But where's that quarrel now? Nobody protested and nobody's quarreling now. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister is enjoying a new wave of popularity because he was able to trick the people in thinking his stance against the US plan made him a good man. No, it doesn't. They're doing everything to make us forget what they have done to us over the past 2 years. From the illegal lockdown to the arrest of our president to the destruction of your small business. And you're going to give him a pass on that. And by the way, while you're busy saying true to what I'm saying about this administration, just know that the other one, the opposition, was sitting there not saying anything. The only group that had anything to say, any good advice for the people, who stood for the people, was the United Independence Congress. And for that, they have worked overtime to destroy us. They have worked 3 times as hard to silence us. Shadow ban on social media is so heavy, it's not funny. Just to use a U means that you get banned. But still we are here, bringing this message to you. So before I close, and again, I'm not seeing your comments, so I can't answer any questions or respond to any of your comments. I keep getting an error message on my screen. But I hope you're seeing the stream, and I hope you understand what I'm saying. I hope you understand that the struggle still goes on. And I hope you understand that in these days and in these times, you now need to stand up. You now need to put your country in a position that assures the future of your children and their children. That's what I'm doing. And all the other persons watching this live, hope that is your interest too. Our African brothers have shown us the way. They've shown us what it's like to stand up. They've shown us what it is like when we back a hero, a true person of character, someone who is willing to work for us and not against us. Someone who is not going to sell our beaches, someone who is not going to sell our bauxite, someone who is not going to sell our monopoly company so that another nation can use it to enrich their country while we face the yoke. Come on. Share the message. True freedom comes when all our rights are protected. Not some, not the connected few, not the selected few. True freedom is when anyone can take up the opportunities that exist in your territory. And right now, only the selected few, only the connected few. Because the government funded by the PSOJ, which they are a part of, and they are the plantocracy of the past, now the PSOJ of our future. They control the government. They choose which one we get because they're the ones who fund them. And we've been telling you that you can do better than that. Let's do the maths. 2.9 eligible electorate in Jamaica. And they're giving $34 million. Come on. $1,000 beat that figure anytime. Anytime. You can put the UIC on the road to have a proper administration. You want to see the UIC out there in the streets, your donation can do that. You want to see the UIC with posters and ads on TV, your money can do that. But right now, it's only a few dedicated persons that are doing that, and we thank you. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you to those who donate. Thank you to those who make sure you support. I see your $10, I see your $15, I see your $20, $25. And I especially want to thank those donors who go in for the $100 and the $200. You know who you are. Thank you. But every dollar is important to us, and we need your support. Right now, I'm standing as Member of Parliament candidate in Eastern Westmoreland. And it's not because I have the resources or the time, but because it's important to the future of my kids and the future of all the kids in the constituency. I need to protect them from what is coming. I need to protect them from these neo-colonialist politicians that are graduating high school students who are functionally literate, even though they have gone to a secondary education institution. They're graduating persons who don't have the mathematical skills to matriculate to university, but yet they're not providing alternatives. They refuse to change from the path of the colonial master, that education system that they gave us, that is designed to destroy us instead of build us up. We need to end that. The government is moving to solidify its hold, to legalize and legitimize its hold on us, our lives. So this constitutional reform is not about giving us better government, but rather to give them a better hold on the national treasury and a better hold over our lives. Wake up, my Jamaican brothers. We're still struggling on from the Caribbean to Africa. Our African brothers have gotten a head start. They see the trick, they're working to reverse it. When is our time? I'm challenging you to start our journey to freedom now. And it begins with United Independence Congress. As usual, thank you for joining us. This is the Town Crier. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Thanking you for supporting the UIC and asking you to spread the word. And reminding you that it's one Jamaica and we are stronger together. Good night.
UIC Liberty TV. Change you can trust.